Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, looking at your pay slip, wondering how much money you'd need invested to replace that salary forever. $85,000 a year in Australia is a solid target. It's enough to live well in most parts of the country. It covers your mortgage, your car, a yearly holiday, and still leaves room to save. Let's start with something most people get wrong from day one. There's no single magic number that works for everyone. The amount you need changes based on how you invest, where you invest, and how much risk you're willing to take. So here are 4 real paths you can take in Australia, from safest to boldest, with the exact amount of money each one needs to pay you $85,000 every year. Path number 1 is the safest: Australian government bonds. Right now in 2026, the 10-year Australian government bond pays around 4.9%. That's the closest thing to a risk-free return you can get in this country. To live off bond interest alone, you'd need about $1.74 million invested. Your money sits there, the government pays you interest, and you don't have to worry about the market crashing. But there's a catch. Inflation eats away at your money every year, and your capital doesn't grow. In 20 years, $85,000 won't buy what it buys today. So this safe option is actually risky in the long run because you're slowly going backwards. There's also another problem. The interest you earn on bonds is taxed at your normal tax rate. There are no franking credits to help you here. If you're in the 37% tax bracket, the tax office takes a big chunk before you ever see the money. To end up with $85,000 after tax, you'd really need closer to $2.4 million in bonds. That's a hard truth most people don't think about. There's one more risk too. If you sell a bond before it matures, you might get back less than you paid, especially if interest rates have gone up. Path number 2 is dividend income. This is the path most Aussies dream about because of how the tax system works here. Australia has something called franking credits. When you own shares in local companies and they pay you a fully franked dividend, you also get a tax credit. The average dividend yield on the ASX 200 right now sits around 3.5 to 3.8%. But high-yield ETFs like VHY pay closer to 6.5 to 7.5% once you add the franking credits back in. To get $85,000 a year in fully franked dividends, you'd need between $1.2 and $1.6 million invested. The amount depends on the mix of shares you hold and your personal tax rate. The good news is, your money can still grow over time, so your income tends to grow with inflation. The bad news is that dividends aren't guaranteed. Companies cut them during tough times, and your income can drop fast when you need it most. You saw this in 2020 when the big 4 banks slashed their dividends almost overnight. People who built their whole retirement around CBA and Westpac suddenly had their income cut in half. That's why you need to spread your money across at least 50 to 100 companies through an ETF. One company can let you down. A whole index almost never does. There's also a risk you need to know about. The ASX 200 leans heavily on banks and miners, so when those sectors drop, your income drops with them. Path number 3 is the total return approach. You may have heard it called the 4% rule. This is what most financial freedom experts in Australia actually use. The idea is simple. You build a mixed portfolio of Australian and international shares. Then you take out 4% of the balance each year, adjusted for inflation. To pull $85,000 a year this way, you'd need $2.125 million invested. Yes, it sounds like more, but here's why it's smarter. You're not just living off dividends. You're selling a small slice of growing assets each year, so your portfolio keeps growing even while you take income from it. Most Aussies who reach financial freedom use this style with low-cost index funds. A common split is 40% in an Australian fund and 60% in a global fund. You get the local franking credits plus the growth of US tech and the rest of the world. Path number 4 is aggressive growth. This is for you if you're okay with big ups and downs and want to retire on less money. The ASX has paid about 9% a year over the long term, including dividends. If you can handle your portfolio dropping 20 or 30% in a bad year, you can pull out more, say 5 or even 6%. At 5%, you'd need $1.7 million to get $85,000 a year. At 6%, just under $1.42 million. But here's the warning. The more you pull out each year, the higher your chance of running out of money, especially if the market crashes in your first 5 years of retirement. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it has wrecked more early retirements than anything else. Picture retiring in late 2007 with $1.5 million. By March 2009, your account is under $900,000 and you're still pulling out $85,000 a year. Many people in that exact spot never bounce back. The fix is simple, but most people skip it. Hold 2 to 3 years of living costs in cash before you stop working. When the market drops, you spend the cash and leave your shares alone to recover. So those are the 4 paths. The next big question is how you actually get there. Because $2 million sounds impossible when you're starting from zero, but the maths is friendlier than you think. If you're 30 and you invest $1,500 a month into a mixed portfolio earning 8% a year, you'll hit $2 million by age 60. Push it to $2,500 a month and you'll get there by 54. Push it to $3,500 a month and you're free by 50. Time and steady habits do the heavy lifting. There's also a secret weapon most Aussies ignore: your super. From the 1st of July 2026, you can put up to $32,500 a year into super at the lower 15% tax rate instead of your normal tax rate. If you salary sacrifice an extra $500 or $1,000 a month in your 30s, you could add hundreds of thousands to your final balance. That's free money the tax office is basically handing you. If you're starting later in your 40s or 50s, you can also use the carry forward rule to catch up. It lets you use any unused super caps from the last 5 years in one big year, which is handy when your income is high. Here's one more thing that matters even more than the number: your spending. $85,000 sounds like a target, but if you can build a life you love on $60,000, your number drops to $1.5 million. If your home is paid off and your fixed costs are low, you might only need $50,000 a year, which brings your target down to $1.25 million. The fastest way to financial freedom in Australia isn't earning more. It's needing less while still living well. That's a shift most people never make. The couple driving a 10-year-old Toyota with a paid-off house in the suburbs is usually decades ahead of the couple leasing 2 new SUVs in a postcode they can barely afford. Wealth is what you keep, not what you spend. So here's what matters. Pick your path: bond income, dividend income, total return, or aggressive growth. Work backwards from your target. Work out how much you need to invest each month. Open the account, set up the direct debit, and stop checking the balance every week. Because the people who actually hit $2 million in Australia aren't the smartest investors. They're the most boring ones. They pick a plan, automate it, and ignore the noise for 20 years straight. If this helped you, do me a favor and hit the like button. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.